V'hishayamida lavesayinu. V'hishamida lavesayinu v'lanu. Shalecha guvan aman aleinu l'chaleisayinu.
In this chapter, I'm going to be outlining many different stories that show how tzaddikim, the most righteous people, whether it be in our generation or in previous generations, would deal with individuals and how they understood v'ahavta kamocha as opposed to the way that many others do. So, to love your fellow as you love yourself is oftentimes interpreted to mean to help someone become like me. Right? Because if you want to love someone the way that you love yourself, so because you love yourself, so that means ultimately that they should be like you. And that will create the most love. And granted, this may not be a conscious interpretation, but ultimately that's the way that most people act. But in truth, if one looks at the situation honestly, so they'll see themselves and they'll recognize, well, wait a second, how do I love myself? Right? How is it that I treat myself? So, for example, if I'm trying to go out to find a guide or a rabbi, someone that can personally direct me to make better future decisions, so who is it that I find? I try to find someone that understands my unique personality and someone that speaks to me, to who I am. I'm not going out and looking for someone that is going to tell me how they are and how it is that I can be like them. But instead I'm looking for someone that understands my specific situations, my specific background, my specific history, my unique personality, and then can help me to understand how do I take the next step towards becoming a better person, or how do I take the next step towards success according to who I am. Now, one time my father came home from meeting with a new doctor and he really liked him. Why is it that he liked him? He liked him because when the doctor was giving him, prescribing him different medical advice, so he wasn't giving the same advice as the previous doctor. He would ask my father, is this something that you're actually willing to do? My father would say, to be quite honest, probably not. You know? The doctor was saying to him, you have to, the previous doctor was saying, you have to completely stop eating sugar because my father's diabetic. And I'm just giving this as an example, and it's how I remember, but it was ultimately within the exact same lines. And my father wasn't going to actually follow that. So the doctor said, you know what, let's think, I have something better. You have to make sure that you work out a few more times a week. Do you like working out? So my father really likes working out, really likes to play tennis. So by prescribing that, the doctor understood what it was that my father was actually willing to do according to who he was. Right? And this is one tiny little drop in the sea of understanding of v'ahavta kamocha is. To love your fellow as you love yourself. Understand that when you're trying to help yourself, you already have accepted the status quo. And you also understand how it is that you can move forward. You're not jumping 10 steps ahead. So I'm going to begin with a few beautiful stories to help you to understand this. There's two purposes for me to lay this out in a very strong and very clear manner. The first reason is for those that are listening and may be in a situation which has to do, say, with intermarriage or has to do with dating someone that's not Jewish. So they're already in the situation and it's extremely hard to get out. So what I need these people to understand is that not only have I been there, but I felt it and I continue to feel it. And ultimately, I'm helping and I'm saying these things not to be controversial, That's not the purpose of this. The purpose is that the individual understand that because of my knowledge and because of what it is that I've been through, I understand what would be best for them. And because I understand what would be best for them, even understanding the incredible amount of pain that I went through, and ultimately figuring it out, that in the end it was the best thing. In the end, this is truly being a good friend, because a good friend's not afraid to give advice if he or she understands what's best for the person that he or she cares about. To be silent is a worse thing, is much worse. Much, much worse. Being silent just in order so that you're going to appease the person and make it that there's no controversy is much worse than speaking about it, letting the person know, and then allowing them to make the decision on their own. At least they've been informed and you can say that I did my job. But within that approach, the person should understand that it's with a complete empathy, a complete understanding of the situation. And the second is to those that ultimately want to go out and try to influence others to marry someone that's Jewish. You have to also understand the incredible amount of empathy that needs to go in this situation. You can't approach it as being someone above, being someone that is a dictator of great knowledge, because your great knowledge is completely and totally insignificant to the actual situation that the individual is living in. You, by presenting this information, if you do it correctly, will also simultaneously, as you're giving proper advice and helping the individual to make the best choice in his life, something that may never have even been a part of the information that was processed in his brain or her brain, or it may not have even been something that his family members had said that it's actually something important, so you're really and truly hitting him with a complete shocker, are walking into advice for that individual that's going to break his or her heart. Now yes, is it worth it for someone's heart to be broken in order to improve their lifetime, to improve the short 70 or 80 years that they're going to be living here on this earth, and to ultimately find what's best for them? To live it out in the most beautiful and productive manner? Yes, it's worth the broken heart. But nevertheless, you are going to be breaking the person's heart if you convince them. You're going to be taking them out of all of their patterns and all of their comforts that everybody in the world enjoys. So when you do it, you have to come with a complete and total respect for that individual situation. You have to understand and have a complete confidence that this is something that you're doing because it's what's best for you. I'm not helping you because I want it my way. I'm helping you because I know that this is something that you need to know about. And I care about you, and I'll be there for you, and I'll do whatever I can to make the situation more comfortable. But if you approach it without a sincere empathy and a sincere understanding that I'm helping this person according to their situation and not according to mine, so you're ultimately going to fail. It's not going to work. Not in the manner, at least, that I'm setting out in this book. He said that he was sitting there in the Beis Midrash. He was sitting there in the room that the Jewish people would study, so when you're in a yeshiva, the house of study. And he noticed that one of the students that never used to show up to class was actually coming into the place for studying. And in these places, what you'll actually see is, that most of the Jewish world, most of what Judaism is all about is the study. So the walls are covered always with bookshelves full of books, full of what we call holy sfarim, holy books, pieces of literature which you're supposed to treat with the most respect possible. As I'm sure that most of you know, that when whatever you consider to be a holy book falls on the ground, so you pick it up and you give it a kiss. You know, books like that, books that you, for some reason, give an incredible amount of respect to. He was standing there, sitting and learning, studying, and he keeps on hearing on the ground, you know, these different thumps. So he looks up, and what does he see? The guy that never showed up for class, all of a sudden is sitting there at a desk, grabbing books, opening them up for a couple of seconds, then taking them in his two hands and throwing them on the ground. And he would do that continuously. It wasn't stopping. My brother-in-law couldn't take it. How much disrespect can one take? How does Rabbi Germain deal with this? This shouldn't be happening inside of a yeshiva. The holy four walls, the walls which have determined the entire Jewish history, and the books which have held us together for so many years. Here's a simple bacher with so much disrespect that in front of everyone he's going to pick up the books that everyone loves and he's going to throw them on the ground. My brother-in-law was ready to lose it. He couldn't contain himself anymore. So he decided that first he would speak to Rabbi Germain about it. He asked, he said, Rabbi Germain, what's going on here? It's disgusting. Rabbi Germain said, you have no clue how great of a miracle it is that he's even sitting here. Even more than he's sitting here, that he's willing to pick up one of the books and set them on the table for a couple of seconds. And even more than just sitting down, grabbing the books, putting them on the table, that he's willing to show a frustration towards them. My brother-in-law was like, I mean, come on. Like, it's good to judge someone favorably, but this is ridiculous. So Rabbi Germain said, let me explain to you what's going on here. I said, yeah. Rabbi Germain said, this boy, as a young child, was in his own house on Shabbos. On Shabbos, he watched his father become frustrated, ultimately push down his mother, and take her life away. This all occurred in front of his own eyes, and he ended up being an orphan child. Rabbi Germain said, see, if you understood the position that he's in, the fact that he's coming here, and he's expressing that God exists, and there's something real about these books, but I can't stand them. And I've got a lot of problems and issues to work out with God, with the infinite, with Hashem. And so I'm willing to show up. It took years for him to be willing to show up. And now Rabbi Germain said he's willing to show up. And he's willing to show that anger. And he's willing to say, listen, God, I know that I'm in a relationship with you. But I can't stand you, and I can't stand what happened. So the fact that he's willing to come here and vent his frustrations is the most beautiful thing in the world. Because if it were me, or if it were you, most probably wouldn't have the strength or the courage to even think of God as being a part of your reality. Needless to say, this approach in Rabbi Germain's gentle care for this student, after another year, he actually became a consistent person in regards to Torah, someone that would sit and learn every day and really enjoyed it.